Hello, this is Lynn David Livsey, and this is Knowledge from Beyond. And who do I have with me today?
Lisa.
It's me and Lynn and Lisa. It's always Lynn and Lisa, and that's very good. Excellent. And we have a great meeting planned for you today, a great podcast. And what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about the current flu pandemic. Is it real or is it fake?
Okay, and why are we talking about this? Because there's a lot of things on the internet. People have been sending me things saying that this is all a conspiracy and Bill Gates made these things and George Soros and they're doing this because they're trying to get Trump, not reelected, and the whole world is conspiring with you. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to look into this. Okay. Is this true? Is this just a lot of craziness going on or whatever? Okay. So let's get started. Are we ready to go?
Yep.
We're ready. And we got figures and we got everything. So where did this current pandemic start? We're talking the coronavirus. Now, before it was the coronavirus, it was the Wuhan virus. This thing started in China. Okay. It started at the market in China. They had they call it a wet market, where they had live animals, and this market was known throughout China for having exotic animals. You could go there and see the strange animals, and not only could you see them, you could say, hey, I want that one, pan fried on a little bit of rice. And they would kill it in front of your eyes, chop it up, and fry it, and you could sit there and eat it. Okay, so you had live animals. That means you had feces there. Since they was going to kill them, they probably wasn't feeding them the best way they were supposed to. And then they were slaughtering animals there, and then they was cooking food and serving it there. Probably the hygiene is not as good as it should be. Okay, this is why in America we have, now this used to be common practice a long time ago, but we got out of this because we now do not slaughter animals and cook food in the same place. That's why they have butcher shops or slaughterhouses, and then they have restaurants somewhere else. Because when you're slaughtering animals and cooking and eating animals at the same place, you can get what is called cross-contamination. Right?
Correct.
And that's why China has closed all these wet markets down. No more live chickens where you can pick out your live chicken. They kill it before your eyes, put it in boiled water, pick the feathers out, fry it, and you can eat it over rice all in 30 minutes. No, that's gone now. Okay, no more wet markets in China. And this is great. Okay. So you can still have your chicken, but they're not doing it the old way anymore. So this is how this got started. Now, there's still some mysteries out there, but we know where this disease started. This was a bat disease. What we don't know is how this bat disease got to be a human disease. Did someone cook a half raw bat, or was this bat, and since it was sitting in a cage, did this bat get mixed with some other feces from another? Okay, they're not sure. They're still trying to figure out, and that's what they're debating. Is this a purely bat disease, or is this a bat snake disease, or a bat this? Okay, they're trying to figure out, but most of this disease, they say 90% of it is bat in origin. And why I believe it's bat in origin, because in Africa, there were several outbreaks of disease that was linked to bats. And in South America, you had some diseases that was linked to bats. That's why I told you a while ago, you need to take bat off of the menu. So before those bat people get upset, some bats can be eaten. Fruit bats are edible, okay. But the type of bats you should not eat are the type that are vampire bats, or bats that are scavenger bats. The scavenger bats are basically flying rats. Okay. Now, if you're a bat expert, I guess you can say this is a fruit bat, this is an insect-eating bat, I could eat this. I'm not going there. I'm just making it very simple. Don't eat the bats. Okay. If you leave the bats alone, you don't have to worry about eating
Right.
not
Because how do you know? Yeah.
right.
I mean,
Okay. You don't have to worry about
Yeah.
the kind you can or cannot eat. You're just not eating bat.
Right.
Okay. You get what I'm saying?
just take it off the menu.
Take it off the
Take it
menu.
off the
Excellent.
menu. Okay.
So that's how this thing got started, from the bats. Okay. And somehow this bat disease got into a person. And as I said on a podcast a long time ago, this was it was in the city of Wuhan. Mm-hmm. China shut the city down, put people under quarantine there. And I said there was some smart SOBs in China and they would figure this out. Okay. Boy, was I wrong.
What happened?
Okay, you get what I'm saying, don't you? Those smart SOBs didn't figure it out.
We didn't predict that one.
Okay, no, I was wrong. I guess I'm not a prophet after all. Okay, and those smart SOBs in China didn't figure it out, and this thing started to spread. Yeah. Okay. And here we are today. And it moved from country to country. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these things was moved by what they're now calling mistakes was made. Like in Japan. Japan had no cases until they let one cruise ship dock that had a few sick people on it. And the dock workers got sick. And then the dock workers spread it to the populations of Japan, and now Japan got several thousand cases, and because of that, now they're going to have to put off the Olympics until next year. So a lot of people are upset because if they wouldn't have let that cruise ship dock, maybe Japan wouldn't have had the problem they're having. See, these are the mistakes that people made, and this is what they're bringing up, what this person did, and this is what a certain president of ours is arguing about right now. Whose fault this disease is? Is this the World Trade Organization's fault? Is this Obama's fault? It can't be Obama's fault because this started last year, okay? Yeah. But they want to blame everybody. And we can all backseat quarterback once this disease has been figured out and got rid of. We can go back and argue over whose fault it is. Mm-hmm. But
right now, we just gotta concentrate on
getting rid of this thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we want to do first to give you some background information, because a lot of damage has been done. Mm-hmm. But the reason why people are saying, why are they making so much mess over a little virus? Mm-hmm. Because if I always like to go back to the beginning. Okay. They're afraid of some very bad things that happened in the past. And they're afraid that this virus and the way it's spreading is reminding people of some very bad things that happened in history. And this is why they're making a big deal about this. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because they always say history repeats itself.
History repeats itself. And this virus is spreading similar to some other bad things. So let's go back in our time machine to some of these bad things that happened in the past. The last time something like this happened was at the end of World War I. Okay. A virus broke out in the trenches in Europe when they was fighting World War I. What was going on in the trenches? The soldiers, they was doing trench warfare in World War I. They was living in these trenches. And these trenches was full of rats and feces and dead bodies, and you're shooting at each other and snipers and this and that. And people was, they was doing everything because the enemy had you pent down. And you could be, for weeks or sometimes for months, just trying to advance a few feet was considered good. And sometimes the enemy would push you back, but it was trench warfare. And since they was living in the trenches, they didn't have restrooms, they didn't have anything, they was eating in the trenches. Some of those trenches probably wasn't as nice as they should be. Okay. Right. And people lived and died that way during World War I. And disease started to break out in the trenches at the end of the war. And as the troops came home, this is how America found about it. We call it the Spanish flu, but the flu did not start. In Spain. Spain is where they started to talk about it, and we started to hear about these articles about the sick people in Spain because the troops was going home. And since they had to go by ships, a lot of the ships was going from Spain or from France to take the troops back home. And as the troops went home, not only to America, but all over the world, they brought the disease with them. And the disease came from Europe to America and went from went where they was fighting, which was along the French-German border, basically. And it went to Russia. It went everywhere as all the troops went home. And it made a lot of people sick. And how many people died of Spanish flu? The estimate is 20 to 30 million people. Okay, and this was right at the end of World War I. More people died of the flu than of the war. Okay, so this is what they're worried about. Now, was that the first time this happened? No, we can go back again. We love history. We can go back to, this is another time in history that this disease reminds us of. Not only of the Spanish flu, it reminds us of something called the Black Plague, which was during the Dark Ages. Okay, what happened there is that a disease broke out in there's a country between China and Russia, which is called Mongolia. A disease broke out in Mongolia. How did it break out? I wasn't there. They have never figured out how it broke out there. But a disease broke out in Mongolia. It started to be picked up on the camel trains because there was camels that was taking things from, through China and to India and all of that. And a lot of these camel trains, the people started to get sick. And that's how the disease spread to China, and that's how it spread to the Middle East. And in the Middle East, you had boats, like especially in Turkey and Greece, that was picking up spices and rugs and everything, and they was taking them to Europe. And the first ship arrived, when the ships started to arrive in Europe, these trading ships, a lot of these ships would arrive and all the crew would be dead and had these boils on them. Okay, and that is how it spread to Europe. It spread through the trade routes. And the city along the trade routes was spreading it, and as the ships and the camel trains and people, and it slowly spread throughout Europe. How many people in Europe died? Between 50 to 60% of all the people in Europe died of the Black Plague. Okay, now, let's go to modern times. This thing started in Wuhan, China. It spread. As I said, it went to Japan, it went to South Korea, then it slowly went to Iran, and it started to spread, and then it got into Italy, and it got into Spain, and then it came to the United States. And okay, this thing is spreading. And what they are afraid. Now, how do you know the difference between a real disease and a fake disease? Because there are some fake ones out there. Okay. Fake diseases seem to go after certain type of people or certain undesirable groups. Real diseases are like tornadoes. When a tornado hit an area, it doesn't say, let me go over there and take out all those trailers over there, but I'm going to leave, right. I'm not going to hit those rich houses over there. Okay, a hurricane takes out a path of whatever. It can be a path. Yeah, whatever's in its way. Yeah. Big houses, trailers, $1 million homes. It doesn't distinguish if you're a church goer or non-church goer. It doesn't make any difference. Right. It just creates a path and destroys everything in the path. Right. Yeah. Okay. Now, that is what is going on with this pandemic we're going through right now. It was an epidemic. And then when it got out of containment and started to spread, it is now pandemic. And what pandemic means is it is spreading uncontrolled. There's no controls. The problem we have in America, we don't have any testing. I don't know if I have it or not. I don't know if she has it. Okay. I had a bad cold around a month ago. Was that the coronavirus? Okay. See, I could be a carrier. I could be breathing on her and other things. Okay, see, nobody knows. This is the problem. That's why they want us to cover our mouths and this and that and everything else, because without testing everybody, a lot of people, around 20-25% of all the people that have this coronavirus show very little to no symptoms. Yeah. But they are carriers and they are giving it to people. Mm-hmm. Now, which people keep saying this is weird, because even if you catch it, your percentage of dying is only, depending on your age group, is small. Mm-hmm. And we're going to go over numbers later. Yeah. But it's small if you catch it. Anywhere, let's go over some numbers. So, okay. How many people in the world have died so far of coronavirus?
Right here in America?
No, in the world. How many people in the world have died?
Worldwide.
Worldwide.
Okay, 1,583,049 people.
Right. Okay, that is the number of people who have caught it.
So far.
Of the deaths so far, we're giving you the dates as of the 8th of April. And have died, there's 94,573 have died.
So far. Yeah.
So far. Now, in America, how many people have caught it?
429,000 Americans so far.
Okay.
Right?
And the death?
I mean, in America.
And a death rate of that is what?
I don't know.
Okay, I think it's 9,000 or something. We wrote the number down, and we don't seem to have that number of the number of people that have died.
Yeah, but this is...
Yeah, this is Texas. So it's only like anywhere from 10 to 12%, because it depends on age and by group. Okay, but it's not distinguishing rich or poor or whatever. You're hearing different things on the news, so let's go over some of these things.
Which is confusing.
Which is very confusing. Yeah. Okay, so if you catch it, what is your chances of catching the disease? You would go. So okay, if you're less than 17 years old.
Okay, well, 17 years or younger.
Yeah, your chances of catching it is what?
1%.
0.1%.
0.1%.
Right.
Okay, 0.1.
If you're 18 to 49 years old, your chances of catching it is what?
2.5%.
If you're 50 to 64 years old, your chances are
7.4%.
Excellent. If you're 65 to 74 years old, your chances are
12.2%.
And if you're 75 to 84, your chances are what?
15.8% chance.
Excellent. Okay. Now, you keep hearing different other things about different races are catching it and whatever.
Right.
Okay. So let's go over the races, because a lot of this stuff is confusing.
Yeah.
So, of the people who have died so far, what race were they?
Okay. 45% white. Right.
Okay, enough to 40. Okay, whites make up 59% of the American population. 45%. So if you're of the people who have died, 45% of them have been white. Okay, and whites make up 59% of the population. If you're black. 33% of all the people who have died is black, but blacks only make up 18% of the population. This is why they're saying blacks have a higher chance. And 8% of the people who are died are Hispanics, but Hispanics only make up 14% of the population. So, a lot of this is confusing. Is it blacks dying because we're weak or we don't know what we're doing or whatever? It goes by this. Because of the people who have died, 98.3% of them have had some kind of underlying condition. And what kind of underlying condition of them? 49.7% had what?
High blood pressure.
Okay. 48.3% had what?
Were obese.
28.3% were
Diabetics.
27.8% was
Had heart problems.
and
19%.
19% had.
Had asthma.
So,
Yeah.
when you look at yourself, you can see how many of those you can check off. The more you check off, the higher your chances are. And if you got, like myself, I'm borderline high blood pressure and I'm borderline diabetes. Okay.
Yeah.
I have 2 risk factors. You get what I'm saying? So you can do that yourself. Maybe you don't have any of these. But the more you have of these, the more you check off,
Right.
the higher your
risk.
chances are.
Right.
Now, even if you're young and your chances of catching it is very low, this is what is happening to a lot of blacks, especially in inner cities, why the inner city rate is high. Because a lot of people in the inner cities, especially blacks, they are chronic marijuana smokers, they're chronic cigarette smokers. Okay.
So they have lung problems.
They have lung problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is what this disease does.
It damages your lungs.
It attacks your lungs.
Right. And this is why they was getting rid of vapor. Because a lot of people who was doing vaping, the vaping was damaging their lungs. If you just, because it was hot mist. And then on top of that, to make this stronger, they was putting cannabis oil inside of the vape of what that thing called?
The vaping.
The vaping device, so they could get high at the same time, and you couldn't smell it.
Right.
Okay, because it has strawberry flavor or whatever. Okay, and that oil from the cannabis was coating your lungs. This is why people was dying from vaping. Now, if you was doing vaping, if you was one of these chronic marijuana smokers, if you smoking all the time, your lungs is not in the best condition anyway.
Right.
And then a respiratory virus come along.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing.
That attacks the lungs
Okay.
specifically. Yeah.
So this is why some young people are not doing good, because a lot of young people have those habits. And if you hitting it hard all the time, and a lot of people just don't smoke weed. They like to breathe it in. They like to hit it hard, what they call hit it hard. They like to breathe it in very deep into their lungs. Okay. That's not good.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Yeah.
That's how people who used to smoke cigarettes a long time ago. Yeah. They wasn't puffing on cigarettes like they do today. They used to breathe it in real deep and blow it out of their nose. Yeah. That's a great way to get lung cancer by doing that. Yeah. You get what I'm saying, don't you? Oh yeah.
COPD.
Okay, lots of great things. It's called party time. You know what I'm saying, don't you? And if you're doing this, your lungs is not in the best of shape anyway.
Right.
And then if you catch this, okay, even if there's respirators, all these machines and whatever, you're going to have a very hard time.
And people like that, who I know one very closely, they say if you do have like stage 4 COPD and you go on a ventilator, you will probably not come off of it.
Okay.
Okay, that's what our doctor has told us. So,
you just got to be careful.
Yeah. So especially those people have to be so careful.
Right. And
we all do.
Right. And this is the problem. Now, see, a lot of people have, as I tell people, we are used cars. I'm 58 years old. My car got a few little dents in the side, and I hit that pole that once. And you get what I'm saying? My car is not in mint condition. It would be great if my body was in mint condition, but it's not in mint condition. I have my little problems. I'm borderline diabetic, and I'm borderline high blood pressure, and I'm this and that and everything else. And then on top of that, a lot of people don't eat well. We're eating all this greasy food and this and that, and I live along the border. They're eating 4 or 5 tortillas, these big giant flour tortillas. People are doing all kind of stuff. And in the inner city, fruits and vegetables are very expensive. And this is one thing they're saying. People that have high amounts of vitamin C in their system seems to do better. Now, where I live here, along the Mexican border, that's easy because you could buy a bag of grapefruit for $3, $4. But if you live like I live in Ohio, they're selling a grapefruit as $1 each. You're not getting a bag of grapefruits or a bag of oranges for $3, $4. Yeah. Okay, you go and buy an orange in the store, they're 89 cents each. So you're not eating that much fruit. When I was a kid, my mom would give us fruit cocktail that was considered. That's not exactly fruit, okay, but we didn't know any better, but we had our fruit every now and then. We had fruit cocktail, or sometimes we had canned peaches, or what I'm saying. We was really healthy back in those days, but anyway, okay, I'm not faulting her or anybody else, but the world has changed. You have to get your hands on fresh fruits and vegetables, and if you live in Chicago, Detroit, and these concrete cities, there's nothing fresh in those cities. Mm-hmm. Everything is super expensive, right? Yeah. It's hard to get fresh anything.
Yeah, we're lucky down here.
Right, and people just eat. When I was a kid, I just ate a lot of sandwiches all the time. Okay, and it was just meat and bread, right? Okay, so this is what catches up on you when you're not eating right. When your immune system is not the best in the world, you're drinking, which is not helping your immune system either. Yeah. And then you're smoking the weed and smoking cigarettes and doing all this stuff. And then you're hanging outside and you're getting wet sometime and you got that little scratchy throat. And then that virus come along. That's like game over, man, game over. Now, people are throwing all that in the garbage and trying to say, this is a global conspiracy by Bill Gates, and he created this disease, and this is a ploy to get Trump out of office. And, we have, a third of the world is now on lockdown. Russia is locked down. China's locked down. India locked down. Even Mexico and Canada is under lockdown. Okay. A lot of people are doing super bad. Myself, I've been out of work since the 17th of March. Okay, my business is shut down. I'm not doing very well. Okay, but can I blame that on George Soros or okay, you get what I'm saying, don't you? Okay, nature is nature. We have some problems in the world that we cause. And the problem now we have, just like with the Black Plague, we was wanting goodies out of China and out of the Middle East. And the problem is when back in the old days, if there was a problem in one part of the world, it killed a lot of people over there, but it didn't affect anyone else in the world. The problem with trading, when you're taking things from one area to another area, you're taking the problems with them. And that's what happened with the Black Plague. This is what happened when you had SARS, when you had N1H1, when you had swine flu, bird flu. You had, with bird flu, you had a problem with the pigs in Mexico got sick. And then the people in Mexico was traveling around the world and this disease was starting to spread. But you had some smart SOBs who was able to figure it out and we solved the problem. Okay. Now, this disease has a low rate. Even if you're 80 years old, your chances is only 15% chance of catching it. Now, this is not Ebola. When Ebola broke out in Sierra Leone, okay, the world spent hundreds of millions of dollars to keep that disease in Africa because Ebola had an 80% rate. If you caught it, game over, man. If that would have got out of Sierra Leone and got to Italy, got to France, got to the United. That's why when one person in Dallas, Texas caught Ebola, the world went berserk. They shut the whole city of Dallas down over one person. Because if that would have got out with an 80% mortality rate.
That's bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Obama administration went crazy, insane over one person because, see, this is nothing compared to that. But the mistake we made is we let this disease get out of Wuhan, China.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, why did we let it get out? That's what we're going to talk about for a minute now. Because a lot of people was kind of upset with China in the first place. Because China, as we know, we got that trade war in China in it right now because China is the manufacturing arm of the world. China's trying to run everybody out of business. China's doing this and that, everything else. And then when China got this virus and China shut their factories down, everybody was kind of happy that the Chinese factories were shut down. So we didn't actually rush over there to help them. And we knew in December and January that China was kind of lying about the numbers of people who was dying. We knew. There was reports. It was in the paper. I read it. Because China was only taking the official number who died in hospitals. But there was people collapsing on the street in Wuhan. It was everywhere. They wasn't being counted.
Yeah.
Okay. So the problem is, since it was China and China was offline, the world should have rushed over to China just like they rushed over to Sierra Leone or these other places when we had swine flu or N1H1 or whatever. But that was a Chinese problem that the world said. And the World Health Organization said, well, China can handle it. If they need any help, they can let us know and whatever. And I even said those smart SOBs was going to figure it out, but they didn't. And now it came back and it's biting us in the butt. And it hurts like hell. Okay.
So, lesson learned?
Okay, so whose fault is it? We can blame China. We can blame the bats. We can blame the World Health Organization. Some people trying to blame New York City because they should have known this was happening and they should have had tens of thousands of extra stock. Okay, nobody knew this was going to happen. Okay, the world do things on its own. You don't have to, the world is the world. But the problem we face going into the future, I was talking to a person the other day that was telling me the prediction is stating that over the next several years, there's going to be several more of these viruses coming because we know very little about the microbial world. We know almost nothing about the microbial world. Okay. We thought there was only 6 types of coronaviruses. Now we know there's 7. There could be 15 more that we don't know about. We know nothing of the microbial world. And the problem we have is if we can't handle a disease breaking out in Mexico, a disease breaking out in Wuhan, China, a disease breaking out in Sierra Leone or wherever, if we can't handle that, remember, I talked to you a few podcasts away that we're now working on sending people beyond the earth, and over the next 10, 20 years, we want to have bases on the moon, bases on Mars. Within 100 years, we want to be doing asteroid mining and all this stuff. What happens when somebody bring a Martian virus back, or a virus back from an asteroid, or you got that scratch on you when you was doing, and that green thing is growing? Okay, how many people have an immunity to a Martian virus? Nobody. If we can't handle a virus on the earth, we cannot go beyond our planet. We don't have the technology. We're not smart enough. We need to stay at home. The planet needs to have a stay-at-home order nailed to this planet. Because what we need to do is, if there's a problem anywhere in the world, and people say, hey, how come it's our problem? How come America got to be the worldwide policeman? If there's a disease in Sierra Leone, that's not their problem. But remember, Diseases don't understand borders and languages and rich and poor and whatever. And since people can jump on planes and travel all over the world, if you're not careful, what breaks out in one part of the world, several weeks later, it's all over the world. So that is what we need to do. We need to pull together as human beings. Stop trying to blame everything on the Chinese or this and that. There's enough blame to go around. We're all guilty. Okay. Because we're eating food. You know, I love kiwi fruit and whatever like that. Okay. You know, see, we're eating all this exotic stuff. I like dragon fruit and all this stuff. This fruit is coming from all over the world. What happens if I eat a bad kiwi or a bad dragon fruit? Okay, you see what I'm talking about? And we're moving stuff all over the world. If somebody gets sick, or if somebody eat a bad bat, hopefully they won't be eating another bad bat, or next time it might be a bad something else.
They changed the world.
They changed the world with that one bad bat. Okay.
Bad bat.
Okay, maybe they didn't cook it hard enough. Okay, you get where it was an undercooked bat. Okay, I don't know. But anyway, we just need to figure out the problem, and we're going to have to be a lot faster. Next time a problem break out, I don't care if it's in Timbuktu, we need to send the scientists of the world over there and solve that problem and nip it in the butt is what it's called. Okay, so is this all a U.S. problem? Is the world conspiring to get rid of our president and whatever? I don't think the whole world is shutting down because of what's going over here. Yeah. And where is this disease the worst? It started in China, but China is not number one anymore. Who's number one in the world when it comes to this disease?
Us.
The United States of America. We are number one. Where's that list at? Okay, right, so which is the 9 countries in the world which has the most cases? Number one is
the U.S.
We are number one.
We're
number one. We always want to be number one. That's what Trump said. We was going to be number one. We're number one. Okay.
Then it's China.
Excellent.
Then Italy. Iran, France, Japan, Spain, UK, the Netherlands, South Korea, and then Switzerland.
Okay, those are the 8 countries in the world that has the most cases. Where is the places in the world that has the least amount of cases? It's Africa and South America. And in Africa, the strange thing happened in Africa. First, they was thinking that black people was immune from this disease, which definitely is not true. But the disease was only breaking out in Africa where they had international airports. The countries and places that didn't have international airports, there was no disease because the disease need a way to get over there. So what all the African countries started doing is closing all their airports down. You get what I'm talking about? So this is why, and now South America, a lot of them have closed all their airports down. Okay, this is not good for the airlines, but the problem is that a lot of times your problems start as somebody else's problem and come to you, right? Okay, so we like to think about places like Africa. Oh my gosh, those poor people, they live out there and they don't have refrigerators, they don't have Wi-Fi, and they don't have this. Boy, they glad they don't have coronavirus. You get what I'm saying, don't you? They missing out on all the fun. You get what I'm talking about? Okay. Now, this is the problem with this worldwide traffic we have. And people love to get on these cruise ships and cruise to nowhere and cruise the world. And oh my gosh, there are so many cruise ships under quarantine right now and all over the world. Okay, that industry, it will never come back. Okay. Because you have people on cruise ships from 20 different countries and this and that, and they're stopping at different ports and different that. And so, in all cruise ship diseases start with one. You have 4,000 people on a cruise ship. One person gets sick, and you're all confined in one small place, and then there's 1, then there's 2, and then there's 4, then there's 16, and then 30. That's called party time. Okay. So you just need to watch yourself. So we will have time later to argue over whose fault this is.
Right.
Okay. And we'll be able to point fingers at who, but what we need to concentrate now, I want to get back to my life again.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think everybody does.
So we just need to get this thing over with.
Yeah.
And we need all the scientists in the United States and in the world to be working together. Not where we are only working on America thing, or we want 50 states to work on their own thing, and if New York needs something that's new. No, if we don't pull together as the human race and try to solve this problem, we don't want it in the history books 20 years from now to say, back in 2020, 2 million died worldwide, or as they said, 100,000 Americans died. Do we want to explain that to our kids and to our grandkids? Dad, you was there when 100,000? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I remember that. I lost a neighbor died, and I knew this woman who died, and okay. We don't want to go down that list. So if we do our part, it's hard. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm kind of stubborn, and they're passing all these strange laws where you can't have more than 2 people in a car, and you go in the grocery store, you got to do this, and oh my gosh, I'm so sick of this. Mm-hmm. But we just need to do what we got to do so we can get rid of this thing. Right. But our old life, unfortunately, is going to be hard to go back to. Yeah. Because the old world of being able to zip around and go anywhere in the world, and you jumped on a plane and you could go anywhere in the world. Okay.
Those days are
maybe some of those sick people don't need to be jumping on planes. Yeah. Maybe we need to be taking, like they're doing in China and other places now. Before you get on a plane, they're taking your temperature, they're doing this and that, because nobody was checking. Mm-hmm. And all these diseases start with what is called patient zero, which is the person who got sick. We never discovered in Wuhan, China, patient zero. The person who started this. Okay, the first one to get sick. If we find them, maybe we should sue that person and put them in jail. We don't know who started it. We know where it started, but we don't know the person who ate that bad. We do not know. Yeah. Okay. But I do not believe personally that this is a global conspiracy against America, against Trump, against black people, against this. The world's going to do what the world's going to do. We just have to learn to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And if there's a problem in your town, in your life, with your family, you whatever, instead of yelling, screaming, and hollering and pulling guns out and whatever, you just need to use your brain and figure it out. We're smart SOBs. Maybe China wasn't smart enough to figure it out, but the people of the world, I believe we are big enough to figure this out. So, before we close, why are they making a big deal about this and saying this could last for months? Because the Spanish flu went around the world 3 times. Okay. Do we want this to happen in America 3 times? No. I don't like part 1. I don't want to see part 2 and part 3 of this. No. Okay. We need to solve this. This is why they're trying to come up with a vaccine or something like that. I don't believe you should try every miracle treatment, and there's all these Facebook remedies, and we got people on TV saying, try this pill and try this, and what the worst that can happen? What the worst that can happen? You take a pill and you get your liver failure or kidney failure, or that's what people do at parties. Teenagers, they say, try this pill. You get what I'm saying? But we're adults. We shouldn't be just trying pills just to see what happens.
And that's why they're making these rules also.
Right.
Trying to keep us, safe. Okay. And trying to, get this over as fast as we can.
Excellent. And we have to learn how to trust each other, and how, if the human race can trust each other, then how are we ever going to move forward? Mm-hmm. Okay, we have to quit this petty bullshit. Yeah. Excellent.
Okay, I was wondering if you were going to say that.
I hope you enjoyed our thing today, and we will be able to blame each other and point and say whose fault this is once this is over. We just need to figure it out and solve it, and we can go through there later. But we need to figure it out. All the scientists of the United States, Europe, China, everybody needs to be working. And if we put all the smart SOBs together, we should be able to figure this out. I hope you agree. With that, this is Lynn and Lisa, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon.